Hi, I'm Scott McLean from transmusicmastery.com, and in this video I'm going to program the Dreamcatcher bass on Massive, and this is the patch that Adam Sabo created on Zebra 2, and that sounds like this. I've got a kick drum on track 1, and that's being used to trigger sidechain compression on the Zebra 2 sound, so I'll let you listen to it with the compressor going. And this is what it sounds like without the compressor. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how to program this on Massive. Leave the sidechain compression disabled for now. Then once we have the basic sound set up in Massive, I'll add that at the end. So if I go ahead and enable this, let's arm this and solo this. So I'm soloing the Massive. That's just the init preset. So what I want to do is set oscillator 1, set that to pulse saw PWM. In fact, let's check that on Zebra. We look at the Zebra patch, it's oscillator 1, VCF shaper, VCF 2, and an EQ. So fairly simple patch. So let me disable all of these components except for oscillator 1. It's an 11 voice saw wave with tuning set to -12. And that's on top of the global tuning, which is at -12, so it's really down 2 octaves from 0. But in fact, Massive also has its global tune set to -12, so we just need to tune oscillator 1 down 1 octave just as it is in Zebra 2. Its width is set to minimum, volume at maximum. So let's try to replicate this sound. And here I'm going to set the unisono mode, set that to, or the number of voices, set that to 11. And then use the pitch cutoff to spread those voices and in effect detune them. Wow, that's pretty massive sound there. Okay, that sounds pretty similar. What we want to do now is enable that glide portamento effect. The way you do that in Massive is we need to set it to mono rotate. We can try these different voicing modes, and I'll do that just to demonstrate what effect that has. Those sound identical to me. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it at monophonic and we'll move on to the next step. Let's just check the guys on this sound compared to Zebra 2 real quick. Okay, that sounds pretty close. So next what I want to do is bring in the VCF1. This is a high pass filter with a fairly low cutoff, so that takes off some of the low end and some resonance. So if I bring massive back in, this is going to demonstrate some of the routing capabilities. For this patch, we're actually going to be using two filters here, VCF1 and VCF2. So we want to configure this so that the filters are set up in serial, so the routing is serial, so that the output of filter 1 will then flow into filter 2. So if we look at the routing tab here, this shows us the routing of massive. And so we want the filter output from filter 1 to go through filter 2. And the way we achieve that is with this crossfader here and set it all the way up at the top, which specifies serial mode. Then set this to a high pass 4-pole filter, or actually it's an HP 12 dB on the Zebra, so we want a high pass 2-pole filter, which corresponds to a 12 dB per octave slope. And next what we want to do is just bring the cutoff down and resonance down, and then I'll try to match the sound now. Okay, let's take a look at the envelope setting. 0 attack, short decay, sustain at 86, and slightly longer release. So let's try to set that up. So we want attack at 0, bring the level down, the sustain level down a bit. Okay, I think that sounds fairly close. Now what we want to do is bring in this shaper, which is adding distortion. The way we do that with massive is we use one of these inserts. So if we look at the routing here, we can put the insert anywhere we want. I'm going to put it right before we go into the amplifier. Well, in fact, we want to have it actually before filter 2 because that's how we have it set up in Zebra 2. So it's between filter 1 and filter 2. So to do that in massive, we would select this as the insert here, put it here so that the output of filter 1 is going to flow through insert 1 and then into filter 2. For this we want to use Bit Crusher and turn that on. One thing I need to do actually is the way we have the routing set right now, I need to have oscillator 1 routed directly into filter 1. Right now it's actually going from filter 1. It's also going into filter 2. So I need to increase this, set this fader to filter 1. So now the output of oscillator 1 will go directly into filter 1. And that's the only oscillator we have. So now I'm actually having trouble hearing any effect here on insert 1, which makes me think that I don't have the routing configured properly. So let me just verify this. So oscillator 1 is going to go to F1, serial parallel, that's going to make it serial, so the output of filter 1 will be then routed into filter 2. That will come through here. And then we have, okay, this is the culprit here, mix 1, mix 2. So actually we want to get what's coming out of filter 2 at this point, which is nothing because this is all the way down. So let me bring that up. Okay, now it's having an effect. So let me just walk you through how this routing works. We've got oscillator 1. Its output is being routed strictly to F1. Now this fader corresponds to that little X right there on the routing picture, the routing diagram. And so that's set to F1, which means all of oscillator 1 will be routed into filter 1 and none of it will be going to filter 2. So then filter 1, the output of filter 1 is then, its level is set to maximum. But then because of this serial parallel fader, it's actually being routed back this way into filter 2. And then the output of that is then going to be set here. This fader here corresponds to this X, which acts as sort of a crossfader between these two. And these circle with the X's in the center of the circle, those correspond to these faders on the filters themselves. Okay, so by setting this fader all the way down, that only allows the output of filter 2 to come through and reach the amplifier and then go to the main output. Alright, so along the way, after it gets through with filter 1, it will go through insert 1, which is here, which has now been configured to be a bit crusher, which will add distortion. So let me go ahead and set this. Okay, so that sounds fairly close. So now we will go to the next module in Zebra 2, which is VCF2, and this is LP vintage, cut off at 134, resonance at 0. So now what we want to do is set the filter 2 in massive to low pass 4, bring the cutoff all the way up, resonance all the way down, And then as we have in VCF2 on Zebra 2, a lower cutoff, we'll lower this cutoff on low pass filter 4 here, which is filter 2. And let me just listen to Zebra 2. Okay, that's pretty close. Next, I want to enable the EQ. Now this is really where we have an opportunity to get the sound exact. And I've already demonstrated the EQ for Massive in the other couple videos, so let's go ahead and not use the EQ in Massive, and let's instead use an external EQ. And I've actually done this before practicing, so let me just clear this actually, reset these, their default values. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try to match the sound that Zebra 2 has right now. Alright, let me check something on this guy. Yeah, we're getting a completely different tonal characteristic with the Zebra 2 than we are with the Massive. So we've got this stacked saw wave. So there's other saws in Massive. So let's try the square saw one, see if it makes any difference. I think that one sounds the best, but it doesn't sound quite like what we get from Zebra 2. So I think that's as close as we can come with Massive for this patch. And what I'm going to do next is go ahead and enable sidechaining and see what happens. So now I think with the side chaining in place, they actually sound fairly consistent with one another. So that's pretty cool. That's it for this patch. I will see you in the next video.